why you choose to not or to proceed with your oath of office, I have no knowledge of. I don't know any of your board business. We are here to either also not only administer your oath, but should you have an agenda for the day, we'd appreciate if you would submit that to our office for our records. And when you have your minutes, we appreciate that you submit those to our office. If you have a contact name and all board members, we accept those in our office for our files. But we have no participation, no involvement in your board processes or procedures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And so just for clarity, because what was said to us off mic was put in the position of that it wasn't prepared, but you all prepared what you were given to prepare to be sworn in, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So that means then by that, Laura Hawk, who was elected our corresponding secretary, and Jereme Sharp, who was elected by this body as our financial secretary, was not submitted to your office, according to your knowledge, to be sworn in.
That might be correct. Like I said, we don't participate on what you do or what you submit. We only administer the oaths to the people who are given to us, and that completes our charge.
So ask the question one more different way. To your knowledge, everyone that was submitted to you, an oath and 3 copies were prepared. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now,
Thank you.
let me see if we can explain this to the best of my knowledge. Our ordinance says that APAB shall consist of 25 voting members, 1 from each NPU. We briefly mentioned this at the last meeting and we talked about it at the executive committee meeting, that perhaps APAB needed to go back to holding its elections in January, because most of the NPUs held their elections either October, November, and in some instances in December. So when we hold our elections and we elect officers, there is a distinct possibility that somebody that has been elected, has been seated as an officer, will not be chosen by their NPU to be their voting member. And our bylaws specifically state that officers must be voting members. Consequently, we have 2 people who unfortunately fell into this transition situation. APAB voted in November, and the NPUs submitted their voting member listing to planning in December. As I said, we talked about this in executive committee meeting, and we spoke about it briefly at our last meeting, that to eliminate this possibility, it may be that APAB needs to go back to having its elections in January, as we did in the past. Mr. Toomey, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I do. Expanding the thought that was just explained, that basically it sounds like, and I'm not sure if I'm correct, that the chair is stating that the people that were not sworn today, other than the one that chose not to be sworn, are not qualified to be sworn, correct?
Exactly, because they
Okay.
are not districts by the NPU. That's the only.
Expanding that to other functions within APAB according to the bylaws, have you notified various board appointees by APAB that are also not delegates or the voting member that they are no longer appointed to those boards. And if that is
No, that's
germane,
not correct.
that is not germane,
No, that's not correct. If you all remember, last year, those of you who were with us at the time, if you will remember, when we found out that we had erroneously changed our bylaws to reflect that we had 75 members in APAB, when our ordinance only says that APAB shall consist of 25 voting members. I made the commitment then that we were going to try to figure out some way we would have the voting members as designated by the NPUs, but we were going to try to figure out some way to keep the rest of the 50 because we need all of you to be working with us on this board. So no, that does not negate that.
was that by edict, or was that by vote, or was that by bylaw that was done? Because it seems to me that if you have a bylaw that states one thing, you cannot change that. And I'm not sure, I'm only doing this to try to clarify and possibly get a cohesive working body. Instead of us fighting internally, I would like to try to settle this matter once and for all. Because we're gonna go back to when I first joined, when APAB was dysfunctional. And that's what it seems like we're trying to head up to make APAB dysfunctional by some way, whether designed or by happenstance. So please, let's go back to what's our record, what's on the book, and what the ordinance states, and not by edict, because we cannot govern that way. So I ask the chair to please rethink and get with whomever the parties are that are stating what the ordinance is, clarifying it, and coming back to the body and letting the body know, first, what is the law, and second, what our bylaws say. And if our bylaws are in violation, then we need to adjust those bylaws.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may also add that at the executive board meeting for this month, and this can be produced in the minutes to read the actual public record of our executive board meeting, we did not discuss what you just stated in terms of moving our elections. That didn't come up at all. What we did discuss and what the overall what the executive board decided was that to essentially reinstate alternate and delegates, because essentially with the exercise that was conducted last year, identifying just 25 voting members only, we have unilaterally done away with alternate and delegates. And your executive board voted to do away with that, to reinstate. And also what we have committed to doing was amending our bylaws and bringing it into alignment. And we also have sought to seek out clarity from the law department. And there was a letter drafted, I'm not sure if it was sent, to get clarity from on behalf of your executive board, which our president and the executive board agreed should be done. But before we can hear back, before we can meet again to discuss, the only decision that was made by vote was to reinstate alternates and delegates. That was what was voted. There was no discussion of moving our election, and the meeting was recorded, and we can produce that recording to this body so you all can hear for yourselves. Because there's so many mischaracterizations being presented and being put forward.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, is it not required that if you were not sworn, that you are no longer an executive board member? Therefore, what I would request is that, Rasheen, that you reconsider based on that fact and take your oath so that you can speak as a board member. And if not, then I would probably request that you step down from the podium as an executive board member. And that is really, I think, protocol. If you're not a board member, not sworn, then you are not a board member. So you need to rethink that. I understand why you're doing it, but it's not a great process because that eliminates your voice. So I would request.
Let's do this.
I would request that you do take your oath.
Mr. Hunter, your response to that? Mr. Hunter, we're waiting for you. You're signing the form, you have to take the oath, don't you? Huh?
I, Rashid Hunter, swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially perform
Mr.
the
Hunter
duties
first,
of
Mr. Hunter,
Father.
please. Madam Clerk, is that official for me to do it that way?
Oh no, you good.
You would have to finish. Thought so. All right, so you need to go up to the front, Mr. Hunter, like everybody else, and please let her administer the oath and let her do her job. Thank you so very much.
Hey. I'm blazed right now. Sorry.
Are we going to swear him in? Or were you waiting on her?
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Because we have a lot of things on the agenda today, plus, we have, a mix of reception to follow after this, meeting today.
Can we get a copy of the ticket board meeting recording?
Mr. Hunter, if you would get in a position where you can face the audience, please.
So there are two additional members that need to be sworn? Okay.
Okay, I beg your pardon? Oh, no, you were not sworn in earlier, okay, you weren't here, what's your name? Okay, Severa. Are you gonna do both?
So Ms. Jones will be sworn in
Ms.
as a board
Jones
member,
as a member, and he would be as an
and you will
officer.
be as an officer. And I can do the vote together. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Rashid Hunter,
swear or affirm
swear or affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties imposed upon me
perform the duties imposed upon me
by reason of my appointment or my election
by reason of my appointment or election
as an officer or a member
as an officer or a member
of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board.
as the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board.
I have not,
I have not,
in order to influence
in order to influence
my appointment to this position,
my appointment to this position,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
expressly or by implication,
expressly or by implication,
promise my vote to any person.
promise my vote to any person.
In all things pertaining to my position,
In all things pertaining to my position,
I will be governed by what is my conviction
I will be governed by what is my conviction
for the public good.
for the public good.
I further swear
I further swear
that I will uphold and support
that I will uphold and support
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and the laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
of the state of Georgia,
of the state of Georgia,
and the city of Atlanta.
and the city of Atlanta.
I further swear
I further swear
that I will uphold and support
that I will uphold and support
the ethics code
the ethics code
of the city of Atlanta.
of the city of Atlanta.
That completes your oath, and thank you again for being members of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. Thank you for your service to the city.
Oh, thank you. They're old. They're like 4 years old.
We're gonna need to move on, ladies and gentlemen. Some of this stuff we will need to discuss in committee, and we will bring back to you at the next meeting, additional information. But we do need to move on, it's already 10:49. On the agenda, you see that was to vote on the December 17th minutes. We do not have those available at this point. We will email those to you and ask you to review them and send back any corrections that you see. Do we have any announcements from any city departments? Seeing none, we move on. Presentations. We don't officially have any presentations. Mr. Hunter did remind me that we did discuss that we were going to, our bylaws require that we discuss the goals and objectives for APAB for this year at this meeting. Last Saturday, many of you attended the Mayor's Neighborhood Summit, at which the mayor identified his goals and objectives for this board for this year. As such, we are going to take a look at those. I have not received the comments that were presented by each of the work groups. I imagine they will get those to us within the next week or so that those can be passed out to everybody and you can see what was worked on, and it may spark ideas about what you think APAB should do. Ultimately, we have committees that we need to have members participating on. Last year, there were specific requests made of the committees in terms of what we wanted to accomplish last year. And unfortunately, we didn't quite get there. We did have a bylaws committee that met. It wasn't, I guess, appointed until late in the year. So I think they met for the second, third, and fourth quarter. But we want to get a fresh start on that this year. Mr. Kyle Kessler, who was the chair of the bylaws committee, is being reappointed as that chair. Our bylaws state that our parliamentarian is an automatic member of the bylaws committee. And that gives us 3 other members that we have. Mr. Terry Ross was a member of that committee, and he has chosen to remain on that committee. Ms. Debbie Skopczynski has agreed to be a member of the bylaws committee, and Ms. Stephanie Flowers has consented to be a member of the bylaws committee. So that makes up our 5 members of that committee. And ladies, I'd like to thank both of you for consenting to work with us this year. Mr. Kessler, as the chair, will send out notification as to when the first quarterly meeting is going to be. The bylaws committee, according to our bylaws, actually is supposed to meet quarterly. So he will notify you all of the meetings. Mr. Kessler, is there anything you'd like to say specifically? Nothing? Okay. Sit back and shake his head at me. Okay. One of our most important committees is, now I'm not saying that they're all are not important, but one of the ones where we have to do the most work is the Public Safety Committee. Those of you that were here with us last year know that the Public Safety Legal Administration Commission was established by the council, I think in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And at that time, when it originally was established, I think we had 3 members from APAB to be appointed, plus, I don't know what's going on with my mic, plus 1 designee. Later in the year, last year, they changed that, and so now we have 5 members to be appointed to the Public Safety Legal Administration Commission, and we have appointed 3. No, we've appointed the original 4, so we have 1 more. Also, the chair of the APAB is a member of that commission. I will be making announcements at our next meeting, but I wanted to talk to the executive committee first. I will be making announcements about my appointment to the chair of our Public Safety Committee at our next meeting. Also, the Transportation Committee. I will be making announcements about appointments for that committee at our next meeting, the executive committee meeting. Utilities, we just recently appointed Ms. Leslie Ramirez, so we're going to give her an opportunity to see what she can do. I think she's only been in that slot now for about a month or 2, so we're going to give her an opportunity to see what who she's capable of. And here's the thing. We discussed at the executive committee meeting that we wanted to keep the delegates and alternates. As long as we have the designated 25 voting members for the NPUs, we would be satisfying the ordinance, the requirements for the clerk's office, and for the city, and we would not be in any trouble. I told you all last year, since we made the change to add the 75. I don't want to get rid of the delegates and the alternates. I told you all that last year when we got the ruling down from the law department about the board is supposed to be made up of 25 members. So we have 25 voting members, but then we still can have our 50 non-voting members. And they told us that we could do that. We just have to make that adjustment in our bylaws. So that allows us to keep the delegates and the alternates from the NPUs. Ladies and gentlemen, we need all 50 of you. All of these committees, and I didn't go through all of them yet, we need you all to be appointed to those committees. APAB mimics the Atlanta City Council with the exception of 1 committee, and that's the Education Committee. Everything else that is APAB, we mimic the City Council. If you are a City Council person, the president of the City Council automatically appoints you to a committee. Period. If you're a member, you get appointed to not just 1, you may be appointed as the chair of 1, but you're going to be appointed to 2 or 3 others simply because of the numbers. That is the way it should be with us. If we will keep the 50, we want to have people so that we have somebody that we can put on our committees. Mr. Martin has been the chair of the, and is the chair of the CDHS zoning committee. Mr. Martin used to have meetings by himself because nobody would show up, okay? Recently, last year, I think he did a lot better with attendance. I think he had about 7 or 8 people at the last meeting. But we have all of these members on this board who should be sitting on these committees. So I want to ask personally for me, if you would consider the committee that you would like to sit on and notify us, and so that we can assign you to that committee. Now, no, we're not going to get everybody, but think about it. if the CDHS committee, the CDH zoning committee, comes up with a resolution or a recommendation that they want to bring back to this board for us to send to the mayor, planning, the city council, it should be voted on in his committee by a quorum of APAB members. Okay? So that's where we are. You have a question or a comment, Mr.?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that you try one of the microphones on your left or your right instead of the one you're using, because it's pretty harsh.
And maybe it's me, maybe I'm too close to it or something, I don't know.
I fixed it.
Okay.
Fine for me.
First of all, and come on, Mr. Brown, I know you had a question in there for a minute, and I apologize for that.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to ask one question, which is about communication that was supposed to be sent to the law department. If we was able from the executive body to send that communication to the law department, and the second piece also involves the law department. In speaking with planning, we had conversations about us being a base organization, and to your point, we've had committees in past and meeting in person often remove membership or the opportunity. So during COVID, we kind of got into this whole virtual aspect of meeting. We've learned that we learned last March, April, that base organizations had to meet in person, and that we had to, it wasn't the NPUs, and the NPUs wasn't a base organization, but I noted then, and I noted again now, and that I've also confirmed with planning that we have base organizations that have been meeting virtually as well since that time. And so I wanted to make sure that we also, while we're listening bylaws and communication with the law department for clarity on the opportunity for us to meet, to make sure that we hold membership. And there's also opportunity for us to revisit the code itself, so not just the bylaws, because the code could simply add one word like eligible members to the code definition, would also put us in compliance, which means that we operate under a delegate alternate type system. We've always had 25 voting members. We never had exceeded 25 voting members in using that system. So there's also opportunity to look at code revision to reflect eligible members of that category. And so I just want you to consider that as well as we talk to the law department, as we proceed with bylaw conversations. That's the opportunity that's on the table right now.
You did make a point that I want to clarify. The Committee on APAB did send over to me, I sent over to them a recommendation letter regarding the questions that we needed to ask the law department. Mr. Kessler and Mr. Ross sent back a different version. They had different, well, not really questions, but a different version of the letter. I spoke to Mr. Ross about it, and I told him that I had read it several times. It was informative, but it did not ask a question of the head of the law department. It did not ask her for a ruling of any sort. He went back over and he said, yeah, I see what you mean. We don't actually have an ask in here. He said, so let us get back together, let my committee get back together, and we will redraft it. And so unfortunately, he went out of town, and he told you all he was going out of town for a funeral and was going to be back on the 23rd. However, he let me know that he was not going to be back until tomorrow. So he's not had a chance to get that letter sent back to me. He also sent over a letter that was sent to the council and to the mayor and the president of the council regarding the NPU redistricting. So that letter did go out, but I'm waiting for his committee to take another look at the letter to the law department. And of course, as soon as I get that, I will go ahead and get that to the mayor.
So given that, and given the time consideration, because I think that we was trying to get an answer back before this meeting, and I think the law department gave us an answer, which means that it said that the code was silent to that, which that's what led us to our bylaws. And so because the code was silent and that we went to our bylaws, that's why we elected to have the APAB delegates and alternates, And without that interpretation or that communication being in conversation right now, can we get, like, what's the plan or action or time frame or planning will weigh in or how that will work?
Well, Leah LaRue, Department of City Planning. Before I answer that, I'd like to clarify that planning did not confirm that there are base organizations that are meeting virtually. And I'm not sure if that's what you meant to say, but planning has not confirmed that. However, as a result of the conversation that you and I had, I did reach out to the law department about that, and I advised them that it was reported to me that there is at least one base organization that is meeting virtually. The lawyer that I spoke to asked me to send that information to him directly because he confirmed again that no base organizations are allowed to meet virtually. He wanted to be very clear with me that there are no exceptions that are being made to his knowledge. So if there is an exception or if there is a base organization that is meeting virtually, they need to know about it so that they can handle it. They wanted to make that clear. Regarding, I'm sorry, what was the second?
The second part was about the communication about the interpretations of voting members. And so in our executive meeting that we voted to, because there was not clarity from the law department, and the clarity that we did receive said that the code was silent and to refer to our bylaws, which kind of put us in conflict, which where the clarity became a communication from this body to the law department. And because that failed right now, I think that's kind of how we got here to the misinterpretations of what's going on. What would be the procedures moving forward, working with planning and the law department, because you guys are the ones who support us, but working with planning to the law department, just a snapshot of what we can do to bring remedy, or, you know what I mean, so that we know our next steps.
Yeah, so to be clear, and I'll read this, to the body for the record, or for their edification. In March of 2022, we sent correspondence to the executive board of APAB, or maybe the executive committee. I know I at least sent it to the elected officers of APAB, stating, quote, as we discussed, the code does indicate that APAB, quote, shall be composed of 25 voting members, end quote. This implies that there could be another set of members classified as non-voting members. Since the code is silent concerning non-voting members, your bylaws could determine how many non-voting members you have and how they are appointed. DCP's recommendation, that's the Department of City Planning's recommendation, is that you clarify this in your next bylaws amendment by distinguishing between voting members and non-voting members. That is the official position of the Department of City Planning and the Law Department. That's the position. We are in agreement with, I think we are in agreement with what I heard Ms. Phillips say, which is that you all need all of the other 50 folks to do the actual work, to be involved, etc. We support that as well. What we need from APAB is to classify in your bylaws who those members are, how they're chosen, what they're called, etc. But the 25 voting members, we don't define the voting members as NPUs. I think that's where the difference has been. We're not defining members as NPUs. We're defining the 25 voting members as the chairs of the NPUs. And if the chair opts not to serve, whoever their designee is, that's the 25 voting members, according to planning, according to law.
And so, because we feel, obviously, it's a two-part piece, to address that in our bylaws, and the next opportunity that we deemed at our last meeting will be the next upcoming bylaws, which will be after today, of course. And I think that's why we took a vote to pretty much take our position, is that we hear that piece. It wasn't courted in terms of the conversation, and also communicated to the various NPUs who would be affected. So even when the communication went from planning to the NPUs, including my own NPU and others that I've spoken to, they was not even clear. And if the spirit of what we're trying to do is to have and promote participation, that again, not only do we have the opportunity to amend bylaws, we have the opportunity to amend the code. And so therefore, by amending the code, we'll have, again, eligible voting members. I think that it's not just about doing the work, because you actually do the work, I think it's some of the clarity that I saw through the year as being the chairperson of the committee, is actually understanding who the voting membership would be within committee. Again, we was trying to do a lot of work and we just, again, failed to revisit that. And I think that in the opportunity and the spirit of what we're doing now, that there's opportunity to make us whole through civic engagement and restoring public trust by making sure that we have the alternates reflected as voting members. Again, it's a way that we simply add the word eligible voting members, or the 25 eligible voting members, and that will speak of a class of members from the MPU that would be eligible, which would then reflect the APAB alternates and delegates in lieu of the chairs who decide to delegate.
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
thank you so much, Mr. Brown. We got, these are the ones that were standing.
But it's one more piece to that, and as well as the base organizations. We also was visited by the mayor last May, where this conversation was also brought up. And to the spirit in which he produced the executive order wasn't intended for how we're addressing it. It was intended to his point, was to get people to come back to work and to move back into working. And he was open to addressing and entertaining conversations about base organizations and meeting virtually. And I think that's in due, even as Robert Rule of Order is updated for virtual meetings, and I mean, just how the spirit of how we do business. So that's the opportunity that's at hand while we were talking to the law department. I just wanted to put that on the floor.
Mr. Kessler.
Kyle Kessler, NPUM, and once and future bylaws chair. Just to provide a little bit more information regarding this letter that's before us, I do have a print copy to share. Terry and I did draft a copy, did send it to the president. Rather than asking a specific question, what we put forth was APAB's current position of having delegates and alternates, with support from Robert's Rules of Order, which is our parliamentary authority, and the one suggested to us per the bylaws template from the municipal clerk's office, stating that it recommends delegates and alternates. And the ask was, per the Code of Ordinances, Section 4, actually per the Charter of the City of Atlanta 3-401, revised bylaws governing structures or mission statements shall be vetted by the city attorney or designee. Since we were unaware the last time the attorney's office had reviewed APU's bylaw, or APAB's bylaws, that these bylaws be reviewed in the context of the membership. So it was not phrased in the form of a question, because there is a requirement in the charter that the attorney does vet our bylaws.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kessler. All right. I'm going to pass that on because we have, did you still have any?
She was on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was saying you can't be heard, you can speak directly into the mic.
I keep forgetting to say it's not in my face and I have to move over here. Let me just move over a little bit. Okay, I apologize for that. We need to move on. We are getting a little bit behind schedule, and we do have some appointees that we need to vet.
Madam Chair, I do know we have a quite packed agenda, and as was discussed in our executive board meeting, according to our bylaws, there are 3 things that has to happen in this meeting. And that is, number 1, install officers. Number 2, establish committees and appoint chairpersons. And number 3, set forth the goals and objectives of the year. I think those 3 things are paramount and the most important things that we need to cover at this meeting. And I certainly haven't heard any goals yet from you as the president and
Well,
chair.
thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. Why don't you go ahead and get us started on the goals and objectives?
I'm not the chairman.
No, but I'm saying we basically have discussed things in the executive committee, so I'm gonna let you get us started.
In addition to that, we still, I think, have you appointed all your chairs? I know you said 2 you need to do.
As I said, I have 2 chairs that I'm asking the board to allow me to have an opportunity to talk to the executive committee, and then I'll bring that back to the board at the next meeting. All of the others I've already identified.
the bylaw committee chair, and you identified,
Let's go over it again. The bylaw committee chair will be Mr. Kyle Kessler. The chair of the, a committee on APAB is Mr. Terry Ross. The chair of the, utilities committee, Ms. Leslie Ramirez. And what else we missing? And CDHS zoning is Mr. Jim Martin. Now, the other two, transportation and, safety, and I'm sorry, I apologize. I missed the education chair. Ms. Kiana Jones will remain the education chair. So that leaves me then with public safety and the transportation. Is that not correct? All right. Those are the two that I'm asking your permission as the board to discuss at the executive committee meeting and then bring to you all at next meeting. If there's question about that, I'll be more than happy to take the vote on it if you wish. Well, the finance committee, we don't actually have a finance committee. It's stated in our bylaws that we were to have, we'd actually have a finance secretary. And of course, that is one of those two positions that we were discussing earlier, that the NPU did not select that person to be their voting member. And the bylaws state that you have to be a voting member in order to be an officer. So that was one of those positions.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. I'm just going to go on the record to say that the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board has violated its bylaws numerous times, starting with our election process and the nominations process as of last year, by not having a nominating committee set up when it was supposed to be set up per our bylaws. We were an entire month late, and that did not happen. What was that? And that was, Madam Chair, that was the responsibility of the chair.
Mr. Sharp.
And that's just one
Mr. Hunter,
of the most.
Mr. Hunter, as the parliamentarian, your directive was that this is a specially called meeting and nothing can be addressed at this meeting that was not on the agenda.
And with that being said, you're right, we did vote on a specially called meeting and agenda at the last executive committee meeting. This agenda that's in front of us is not the agenda that we voted on, actually. So going into, again, violating bylaws, we are once again, Madam Chair, doing just that. Because again, I'll repeat myself, at our last executive committee meeting, we voted on 5 agenda items. In particular, the executive committee did. Not only that, those 5 items were also talked about or discussed through email. This agenda that is in front of us today is not a reflection of that vote. That is a problem in itself. So again, as I stated, ma'am, please, if I can please finish. Madam Chair, I have not said anything. Allow me to finish, please. We have the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, under your direction, has violated its bylaws numerous times to this point. Numerous times. This is just one of the most recent times where, again, under your leadership and your direction as president, you have allowed this to happen. And I'll repeat myself, this agenda in front of us is not the agenda that the executive committee approved at the last executive committee meeting.
Mr. Hunter, did we not, in those 5 things, say that the swearing in of the officers, the appointments to the boards, you only allowed, since we didn't have any resolutions to vote on, the one resolution for read only. We did say that we were to do the goals and objectives, and I did leave that off. But your instructions to me was that I could put, since we left that off by mistake, we could put that under presentations. And that's the only thing that's on the agenda.
So Madam Chair, as the parliamentarian, it is my job to protect all members. So that is correct. I did go to you privately after emailing you before the meeting, directing you in terms of what we have to do in the meeting, the process of how we do a special call meeting. I was very detailed. I actually received compliments on how detailed I was in my email to make sure that we were in compliance with state law, the state sunshine law. After that, and then this morning, I put it to the side and made you aware, after reviewing the written agenda, that this is not what we discussed and voted on in our meeting. And then I also told you how we go about rectifying that, because again, we don't create the agenda, and also the corresponding secretary did not send it out this month. You sent it out. And so if you're asking, is Mr. Shaw correct in saying that this is not the approved agenda that we voted on? That is true. And again, today, members of APAB, I'm committing to sending you all the actual recording from our executive meeting with a transcript. I don't want you to believe what I say. You can hear the meeting for yourself. We will have that out to you today.
That'll be fine. As I said earlier, everything that we voted on to be presented today is on this agenda. The one thing that I did miss was itemizing.
Everything and one thing cannot be both true. Either everything was and one thing wasn't. Everything and one thing cannot both be
To be very specific, also that is incorrect. On this agenda that's in front of me, what has been added to this agenda is the board and task force reports. In addition to that, please, if I may finish, what has been added to this agenda, this was not approved, was also the Department of City Planning report. What was also added to this agenda that was not approved are the NPU announcements, and what was also added to this agenda without approval are the public comments and announcements. These are all things that were added to this agenda, because if you remember, Madam Chair, this is a special called meeting, meaning that nothing can be added to the agenda, but things can certainly be removed from the agenda. So again, I will repeat myself, this agenda is not what we approved.
Noted, Mr. Sharp. We're gonna move on, ladies and gentlemen. We're not gonna sit here and argue all day. We have appointments, Mr.
It was my intention to call for the orders of the day. We've adopted the agenda and we have deviated from it drastically. We have guests here today who are candidates for board appointments and didn't come here to listen to us argue.
Thank
We
you.
can certainly
Thank you.
carry on our arguments at the end of the meeting rather than at the beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
I was coming up for the same thing, call a point of order. We have 7 people that are supposed to be appointed, and they are on the agenda, and we need to address that because they are here volunteering their time, just like we are, and they need to be able to get appointed and move on with their day.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move right into it. The first set of appointments is for the Beltline TADAC. Ms. Gabrielle Dudley, since we had to move our meeting from last week to this week, her job had already scheduled her to be out of the city for this week, so she could not be here. Mr. Ronald Grunwald from EPUE, he's here with us this morning. Would you please come up to the mic?
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. Tell us, just take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Beltline TADAC.
Sure, gladly. Ron Grunwald, live in the Lauren Heights neighborhood, NPUE. Being the president for the better part of 15 years for the neighborhood association, served on the NPU, served on the Beltline Sub-Area 8 Citizen Task Advisory Committee. My background's in urban planning. I've switched, as some say, to the dark side of real estate development. But I do a lot of in-town projects around the Beltline, the South Beltline, the western end of it, and recently have been involved with the segment determination for the northwest alignment. So I've been very interested in the different goings on of the Beltline since its inception many years ago. So I think I bring interest and I hope I bring value.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Grunwald? Mr. Martin?
Historically, the Beltline TADAC has always been pretty dysfunctional. Are you going to have the patience to put up with that?
You can manage here, you can manage there. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Grunwald.
Well, I think, Jim, you know me to be very patient. So, I do have some more patience with age, I believe. But yes, I'm very interested in participating and going on with hopefully putting some input in.
In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Second. Mr. Brown was on his way up, so.
Oh, thank you for volunteering. How would you identify yourself in the body of interested parties in the public realm, not necessarily the professional realm of developers or builders or whatnot, but citizenry in general? How would you identify yourself as an individual with an interest in the Beltline? And what would you say is your highest priority for success of the Beltline, given your particular interests?
Thank you. Good question. Thank you. So personally, what I do outside of my professional life is really more to my core of urban planning and community involvement. Like I've said, I've been involved in my neighborhood and my NPU for many years, and what I like to do is bring along partnerships and multiple agency involvements. And that's what I hope to bring into this oversight committee here with the Beltline. I do know there's been realignments of the routing. There's different things that have been set and necessarily before the zoning, the TAD, etc. But there's certain things that are going to have to be modified, and I believe in having an inclusive process to be able to hear the voices of the community and make it easy for them to understand, kind of unlike what we're going through with the zoning rewrite right now. I think a lot of people are over their heads and over their skis on that. So hopefully we can simplify it and get some good participation.
Thank you. Mr.
Right, to my NPUQ, I'm not sure, but I think Richard was going towards this question. As a developer, do you have any projects that are accompanied by the Beltline that you could influence either positively or potentially negatively? Can you address that, please?
Sure, thanks. So my projects are near the Beltline right now. One project that we're doing is a grocery anchored in Summer Hill, which is near the Beltline on the future BRT route for Summer Hill, where we are not influencing the Beltline, of course. My developments are probably smaller when I say my companies. And then we hopefully have some other projects around the Southern Loop, Chosewood area that are beneficial to the Beltline, but not influencing the Beltline like a lot of other developments. I hope that answers the question.
Mr. Hunter?
And just to kind of piggyback on what Stuart said, so with that being said, do you anticipate if you get appointed having to recuse yourself for any votes because of potential direct or indirect conflicts of interest?
I certainly would if that came up. I have done that before in the NPU, but right now, presently, the company I work for does not have any properties that would necessarily benefit from any of the work that I would do in a citizen participation right now.
Ms. Sarko?
Yes, Naomi Sayal, Mock NPU, and I was curious, so it's not just transportation and infrastructure that you all look at as part of the committee, but you also look at historic preservation as well as affordable housing. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that and how you look to focus on those as a member of the committee.
Thank you. Obviously, my strengths lie more in the nexus of transportation and land use, environmental issues and things like that. Historic preservation, I'm very much cognizant of the fact that I think Atlanta has not had a good history in doing historic preservation, and I would really like to see more of a adaptive reuse and more of a focus on that. However, I believe with the Beltline, there is a task to develop density around the Beltline, and part of that is addressing the home affordability. I'm not really sure how tasked we are at Paddock with the affordability. I believe there's another committee that looks at that for the Beltline. But it's something that, again, I think there is not a mechanism in place in Atlanta and really in the country where there's a good process for home affordability. I mean, we talk about it, and I'd be happy to grab a beer with you and talk for 2 hours about it, about the woes and what I see and where it goes. But it's a big problem that hasn't even been touched.
All right, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Martin that we accept Mr. Grunwald for appointment to the Beltline TADAC. The motion was seconded by, is it Mr. Rao? Oh, second.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, who seconded the motion now? Okay, Mrs. Kopczynski, we got that, right? So you've heard the motion. All those in favor of our recommending a favorable appointment of Mr. Grunwald to the Beltline TADAC, please raise your hand. Let's see. Thank you so much. Anybody opposing? And anybody abstaining? Are you opposing or abstaining?
I'm definitely abstaining.
Okay, all right. All right, so we have a vote of 19 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention.
2 abstentions.
2 abstentions. I'm sorry. You abstaining? Okay, 1 abstention. So it still remains the same, 19 yeas, 0 nays.
So I will
and
be
1
a voting
abstention.
member until I get sworn in as utilities chair, or am I not allowed to vote at all? Miss Ann?
All right, so the motion carries. Mr. Grunwald,
Did they
thank you
hear me?
so very much, and congratulations. And we look forward to working with you on the Beltline. And I will say that Nathan Soldat, who is the director of the Beltline, had planned to be here with us this morning to greet you all as you were confirmed. But of course, since we had to change our meeting last week, you all, the Beltline has I want to say a retreat or something like that. This week's at this day, so he couldn't be here, but he did say that, of course, there is a special orientation for you all. Yes, ma'am.
I think Nathan is like the Citizens Outreach something, not the director. That's
Yeah,
why
but
it is.
he had planned to be here to
I
greet that.
didn't know if you got the name wrong or the title wrong.
I got the title wrong, yeah.
Thought you got the motion.
Okay.
No, well, thank you very much. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You had a question?
Nope, I'm here on behalf of TADAC. I just left that meeting. I am a TADAC member,
Oh,
so I
you
wanted
did?
to welcome
Okay.
them, but I know there's another person, so I want to do it all.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Bob Morris from NPUI. Mr. Morris is not here. All right, the Public Safety and Legal Administration Commission. Now that is an actual commission appointment. That is one of the 5 new slots that I mentioned to you all earlier. Is Mr. Paul here? Unfortunately, as I said, we had our meetings the third Saturday of every month, but because of the Mayor's Neighborhood Summit last week, we had to change it. And a lot of people had already planned other things that they had to do. All right, public safety precinct work groups. We have Mr. Barry Russell from NPUP. Is Mr. Russell here? Ms. Nafissa Burson from NPUC. Good morning again.
Good morning.
If you would, take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be on the public safety precinct work.
Well, greetings. My name is Nafissa Burson. It's an honor to speak with you today in reference to being appointed to the public safety work group. I am confident that I have the knowledge to and experience that you're currently requesting. I am a Atlanta native. I've been in Zone 3 since 2006, where I was the neighborhood president for up to 3 years. During that time, I organized neighborhood cleanups with the District 12. I also instilled the community meetings because we wasn't currently having community meetings at Polo Rock. So when I came, I put all the meetings together, and so we started having meetings. Of course, I was alone for a minute, but the community members, they finally joined. I have experience in the community, and it's my hopes to work with the board in the future. I worked on a lot of previous projects with South Face, Habasha, City of Atlanta, had some trainings from City of Atlanta. So I did a lot of hands-on volunteering with the tree ordinances. Went to the courthouse, came down to the city hall to speak, on behalf of different ordinances. So I'm here today just to, put my experience to use for the community.
Somehow she ended up working for the Georgia Department of Transportation after all of that.
Yes, and I also work for the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Okay, do we have any questions for Ms. Burson?
Yes, Jim Martin, UD. There are some base organizations that exist in name only. Aren't the public safety working groups currently such an organization? And are you prepared to participate in an organization that doesn't exist?
And I don't think she can really answer that. Mr. Martin, I do understand that some of the precincts had already started their work. It was pulled together by, from my understanding, the actual city council people for that area. Even though most of the precincts probably had not gotten underway the way they're supposed to, we still have 15 people that APAB has to appoint to these work groups. There are 5 work groups that were established under that ordinance last year. And there's 6 police precincts, but they combine precincts 5 and 6. So that's why we're only working with 5. And APAB has 3 people that they need to appoint to each one of those work groups. The primary criteria is that the persons being appointed must live within those precincts. And the precinct commanders then will assign whomever to work with those groups. I imagine that they're meeting maybe once a month. But yeah, even though we have not done our appointments the way we should have, they are still officially on the books, and we have to continue with that until we're, they send us something saying that it's been changed.
And to answer your question, yes, sir, I'm ready to get started. I can help them get started, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. All right, can I get a motion, please?
I would like to make a motion that we approve. Second.
All right, who's second? All right, so thank you. All right, so it has been properly motioned and seconded that we approve Ms. Nafissa Burson for the Public Safety Precinct Work Group for Zone 3. All those in favor, please raise your hand. What did you get, Mr. Hunter? Okay, 18. 18, thank you so much. Anybody opposing? Anybody abstaining? All right, so we have a motion, we have 18 for, 0 against, and 0 abstaining. Ms. Burson, thank you so much and welcome, and we look forward to working with you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you, thank you.
That concludes that part of the agenda. The only other thing on the agenda for today, and if you notice, everything that we're discussing today is on page 1. Page 2 of the agenda is standard information. We have one resolution that you all were picking, it should have picked up on the counter, and even though we started discussing it, Mr. Martin, last year, says it's actually going to be approved, and this year, it actually will be our first resolution of 23. So the number did change on that. And it is for first read. Please read it. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, please get in touch with Mr. Jim Martin or a member of his committee, the CDHS Land Use and Zoning Committee. All right. Officially, that concludes our agenda for today. I want to ask that each of you please stop by.
Madam Chair, public comment. Public comment. That's required by
Mr. Hunter has reminded that we are required by ordinance to do public comment. So we're going to take about, we're going to see if we have any public comments. We want to keep them limited because we do have an event that we're scheduled to go to after this. And that's going to be right on the side of the City Council chambers. It is a specially planned meet and greet reception that Ms. Kiona Jones and I'm going to say her committee of one pretty much, but her committee had planned for us for December. However, because we had ran into so many different changes of things in December, it was rescheduled for the first meeting of the year. So it is going to be our meeting and greet, and give us an opportunity to meet each other, talk to each other. We have a number of new people with us this year, so I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and welcoming each one of you. So please, if you can, stick around for a while. The menu should be great, okay? All right, do we have anyone that wants to make public comments? Hi, sir, are you making a public comment? Come on up to the mic.
Good morning.
Please state your name.
I'm Derek Green. I'm the Vice Chair of NPUJ. And I had a quick question, Madam President. You mentioned a law department ruling. Was there official ruling in writing concerning our 25 members or voting members, so forth and so on?
That was, I think, what this little read a little while ago.
So it was put in writing?
Yes. That was the question that Mr. Chris Brown asked, and that was her response.
It wasn't clear it was in writing.
If I may add context
Yes.
to that, because some people have different interpretations of it in writing. The request was asked, and Mr. Rule will keep me honest, I know. The question was asked officially by the Department of City Planning, and then the answer was communicated back to Ms. LaRue and or the Department of City Planning. What we received was an email stating what was said. We are not privy It's nice that we're not privy or allowed to see the communications between the two, because that is considered attorney-client privilege. So what we received was a message from Ms. LaRue in her official capacity stating what was said from the department, from the law department.
And just for what it's worth, it was a direct copy paste. Those weren't my words. It was a direct copy paste.
Okay. Because I'm concerned, I never heard, it wasn't clear, that, it seemed as though it's still up to the interpretation of APAB.
That wasn't, no, not at all.
Whether as far as the vote, yeah, it was. But anyway, okay, so the code says, I'm gonna be real quick. Forgive me because I wasn't really prepared to speak today. Code says that there's, I'm gonna read it. Section 6-4001, it says, B, the chair of each neighborhood planning committee or the designee of the neighborhood planning committee shall have one vote. Further down, it says in section 6-4003, the functions of APAB. Number 1, prepare its own bylaws not inconsistent with state law or city ordinance. APAB bylaws under Article 4 amendments. I'm gonna skip down a little bit for time. Again, it says each neighborhood planning unit should have one vote. It also says, further down, the last sentence, it says the delegate should have the first right. Actually, before that.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Okay, I admit that we, are public comment.
Right.
And however, this is not the place to go back and recap what we've already discussed.
It's a public comment.
So it's a public comment,
Okay.
but please don't stand there and read all of that. Please just state what you have to state, okay? If you would, just state what you have to state.
Madam Chair, I know you're familiar with public comment.
Yes.
I watch all the city meetings. We watch people come down here and bring the old gods and the new. He's allowed to say whatever he wants during his public comment, as long as he is not being offensive or making threats. You have to allow him to speak now.
I know we have to allow him to speak. I didn't tell him he couldn't speak. I just asked him to say what he got up to say and not to read all of that information.
I am. I'm saying it right.
Okay?
Okay. It says, Article 4, members. The MPU chairperson, the official board member, shall have the right to serve on the board or appoint a delegate or the alternate delegate. Last sentence. The delegate shall have the first right to vote, then if absent or demurs, then alternate delegate, and lastly, the MPU chair. So in other words, by my reading and understanding, there are potential 75 voting members, but only 25 can vote at any one time. Now, I didn't see anything from the Department of Law that was contrary to that. And so I'm concerned because today we only sworn in, or APAB, because I'm not part of APAB's body, only sworn in the call for, I assume there was delegates, or the voting delegate, or whatever the case may be. The alternates weren't sworn in, which they should be because, again, they could be designated to vote at any time.
Okay, your
based on the bylaws.
your 2 minutes are just
Actually, Ben Dorman, are you still deferring your time?
your time is up. Okay. All right.
Ben Norman, NPUJ alternate, yield my time to Derek Grant.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So I continue. I appreciate it. So, the real quick point is, there should have been at least a minimum of 50 people sworn in. And in one time, there, of course, there are 25 voting members, which does not contradict both Muni Code, state or the city code, or the MPJ bylaws. Right now, by not swearing in those other 25 delegates, APAB is violating its own bylaws. And parliamentary procedure says if you violate your own bylaws, then basically when you're out of compliance, no vote, no motion could really be deemed legal. So we really have a quandary. I think APAB should look at getting that corrected. That is a big issue. It is a form of voter suppression, and I will say that strongly because one of the main persons responsible for both APAB and NPUs was Maynard Jackson, whose grandfather was a major voter rights advocate in the state of Georgia, registering thousands of voters across the state. Maynard Jackson is son of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. I know the spirit of the law would never allow for any form of voter suppression. I think it's very important that we carefully consider how we interpret the laws, or just follow the laws as written by your own bylaws. That would be a good thing.
Next person, I can't see behind, okay.
Thank you.
And since we have so many people, we're gonna ask you to keep your comments down to 1 minute. So please. Mr. Carr?
I'm Steve Carr. Most of my time is in Neighborhood Planning Unit W. I'm also not a current delegate to this body. And I want to speak to confusion about property involving the South River and Entrenchment Creek and the proposed public safety training facility and the park, which is part of the land swap of Backhaul Studios in DeKalb County. There's two pieces of property with Entrenchment Creek right through the middle of it. You got the west side, you got the east side. The east side, let me back up. The west side is the old prison farm, which has an extremely sordid history in Atlanta. It is the proposed site for the public safety training facility. The Save the Forest people are on the other side. That's the park where Blackall guy has already knocked down the gazebo, taken up the concrete path that connects to another park in violation of a stop work order. There's current legislation, the current litigation in DeKalb County Superior Court on the east side, on the park side, and it has nothing to do with the prison farm and the training facility. But the mayor, Governor Kemp, and what I'm hearing in the news media, they're lumping everything together, that the people in South River Forest are the ones that say no cop city. Well, I've been involved with it, bear with me, I'm in pain. And it's tough for me to concentrate and balance and talk at the same time. I have not met one person who's involved with the South River that says no police training facility.
You have 11 seconds, Mr. Carr.
Thank you. 2 Septembers ago, I was involved with a 17-hour public comment. I asked 5 questions. I've not gotten an answer for that yet, and the 6th question has come up
Okay,
since
Mr.
then.
Carr, thank you so very much.
I really need to mention these questions, and then I'll go. I want a site plan, stop that, Jim. I want a copy of the EPA Phase 1 and Phase 2. I want a list of alternative sites.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carr.
And gotten nothing so far, and everybody needs to go back to square one, talk about it, and get this worked out. I'm in favor of training, and lots of training. And as you can see by Memphis and even in Atlanta, where the 26-year-old fellow got killed, not over on the side for the training facility, but on the other side. Why was Atlanta police there? DeKalb County's got almost 2,000 police. They could have had their own police there.
Mr. Carr.
All right. Where's my stick? There it is. I found it. No.
This is all. I just want to mention a few things. In our bylaws, it says that there are 3 things that must happen at this administrative January meeting: install officers, appoint committee chairs, and to receive the goals of APAB from our presiding officer. We only sort of kind of did none of those. And I do also want to point out that on the back of this agenda that was prepared by our president, there are committee chairs that she listed that I guess she decided not to appoint. Those being named on here: Chris Brown, Public Safety Committee Chair, and also see Jereme Sharp with meeting, well, Jereme has a meeting scheduled as the Transportation Committee Chair, and that's just so unfortunate.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Sam?
Hey, afternoon, Sakira Jones. Just wanted to say thank you all for being here and your dedication. For those of you that are not APAB members, I would highly recommend you ask if you can be appointed as a designee, or if not, then attend a meeting. They're all public, so if you're interested in bylaws committee meetings, or public. If you can't attend the meeting, email Kyle Kessler or Terry Ross and let them know what your concerns are so that they can officially address it there, because that is where all the detailed work happens. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones.
Mr. Mr. Chris, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure this thing out, but go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, we've heard a lot today. Some things been previously discussed and some things that's been put on the floor. Just trying to get an understanding of timeline on how we communicated between planning and the law department, and more importantly, the MPU chairs, because there's a number of chairs that have raised concerns that did not know what was going on and all was going on what they was told. Now that we have obvious conflict, like, what is that, how do we proceed with this? Like,
Thank you for that question, Mr. Brown. I was truly hoping that somebody, I had just asked Ms. Phillips if I could speak, and she told me no.
That's not what I thought I heard. I thought you asked me
If I could give a report is what I had said, but it's okay. I know this is a special meeting and you all have an agenda, so it's fine, but I really appreciate that question. From where I sit, the resolution is fairly, and I don't want to minimize the problem, that's not my intent, but from where I sit, the resolution is pretty simple. The law department, and I also should have said this earlier, but to be clear, I think everyone knows, but I do want to be clear, I'm not representing the law department. I'm only representing the Department of City Planning, and I can speak to any correspondence that I've had with the law department as a representative of the Department of City Planning. That said, as I understand it, the code reads that APAB is composed of 25 voting members. Someone, I think Mr. Green, just read in the bylaws that says that each MPU will have a vote. And I've had a number of conversations with some of you, some of the board members, et cetera. I've said that from where I sit, it appears that the real conflict is that APAB identifies its members. Is that for me?
No, go ahead. I turned it off.
APAB identifies its members as NPUs. The Department of City Planning identifies its members as NPU chairs. In the event that the chair does not wish to serve on APAB, then the chair can designate another person in their place. We see those 25 people as the members, the voting members, I'm sorry, to be clear, the voting members of APAB. When I brought that to the law department as what I foresaw as a quandary, causing quite a bit of a stir, or anticipating quite a bit of a stir. They responded that because the code is silent on other classes of membership, that APAB could very well designate other classes of membership as non-voting members. You still have your 25 voting members, which are not NPUs. So it's not NPUS, for example, that is a member of APAB. It's Kyle Lamont that is a member of APAB on behalf of NPUS. You could also have, you meaning APAB, could also have other classes of members, whether that's 10 more people, 25 more people, 50 more people, whatever you all believe is appropriate could happen. You're asking what the solution is or how to move forward. I think that that's the solution. I think that APAB should amend its bylaws with urgency, which is what I requested in March of last year. Well, I didn't say it like that, but I did communicate verbally that y'all needed to work on that last year. I think that APAB should amend its bylaws to make clear what that other class of membership is, who they are, who they can be, what they can do, etc. While we're on the subject, since I have the mic, I also think that it would be helpful for APAB to have its elections after its members have been identified. Because part of the confusion is that APAB is functioning, or is in many ways, and if you pause and think about it, you'll probably see what I mean. In many ways, APAB attempts to function as an NPU, as like a super NPU, and it is not, and it isn't intended to be a super NPU. APAB does not need to have elections in October or November like the NPUs do. You can, if that's what you choose to do, you certainly can. There's nothing in the code that says you can't, but your officers, specifically your president, is required by code to be elected from the voting members. And because most of the NPUs don't identify voting members until the end of the year or the beginning of the year, it is a bit, it could cause conflict to try to elect officers or a president before you've even identified who your voting members are. I have other thoughts about all of that. I won't take up your time with that. I do look forward to having continued conversation. And our department, I've discussed this at great length with our deputy commissioner and our commissioner, and they are in full support, just as I am, of doing everything that we can to support APAB, to get all of this resolved, and to get y'all really stable and moving forward.
Thank you. To add to that, there's an effect to this piece, right? I'm here because my NPU chair said that there will be no big effect. He had not heard anything else back, to which I can show up here today, that I come here, that there is still the same conversation from my executive board meeting. And because, I was an alternate, and it seems that I'm not being reappointed by the chair, which is at her liberty, that body that discussed this, who has the knowledge of this, and who have been a part of this, will now be alienated. And I think that some people had said that to happen early on in the conversation, that this was a ploy to do this, to break up a group of people. Some said even people specifically. But with all that said, I'll follow up offline, but I want to announce that I guess the last public safety meeting under my tenure would be this upcoming Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and it's all virtual, and you can find that information online as well at safeatlanta.org. I look forward to, chairing this last meeting. There's a lot going on in the city. I think also the Public Safety Commission meeting was canceled last week. So I don't know the impact. There's a lot of things that are extenuating, and this is happening behind the scenes that is impacting representation by the community itself. And I'm very concerned about things that happen in the community that went well beyond where we wanted it to go with the council and the NPU system. Now it's APAB and the NPU system. And I think that we've had these discussions, and there's opportunity to do the spirit of what Maynard Jackson created this thing to do. Not only to have representation, but also to do the engagement. We started this work, and I think that in the 17 years that I've been around, we've come a long way, but I see us going backwards again. But I want to thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I add one more thing, Mr. Toomer, or something before y'all second that? Sorry. I'm excited to announce this, so I just wanted to, if I may, share that I told you all there were 2 commitments that we made last year. And believe it or not, 4 years in, I'm still learning that things don't always move as quickly as I would like them to move. So I committed to getting a couple of things done that were not done in the time frame that I expected, but we are making progress. One of those things was resolution routing. I've communicated with Mr. Martin and with Ms. Phillips that, with Mr. Martin specifically because most of the resolutions were coming from him, and he was the keeper of the historical documents, if you will, or of those resolutions. So we have successfully routed every resolution that we received for 2022. That is a new process that I worked with Ms. Phillips and Mr. Martin to implement last year. We have received back responses for, I believe, 5, maybe 4 of those, 4 or 5 of the 10 resolutions that you all passed in 2022. We have not yet delivered those responses, and it's my expectation that we will have them in your hands by Friday. That is my hope, Friday of this coming week. That's my hope. So that is that. Secondly, I committed last year to setting aside funding from our FY23 budget to assist with some of what I see as an opportunity to stabilize, an opportunity to strengthen the board and to help the board become more cohesive, more productive, and to ensure that the board is valued. So with that in mind, we offered to do some strategic planning so that you all could do 1-year planning, 2-year, 3-year, 5, whatever. And I'm happy to say that we received from the consultant 2 dates for that session. I am hoping that all of you will help me identify the date that works best for you. I'll send out a doodle poll or something like that, but please consult your calendars for February 24th, which is a Friday, or February 25th, which is a Saturday. It will be a Friday or a Saturday, completely up to you to determine which works best. And in that session, we'll be doing some team building, some praying and singing. I'm joking. Some visioning, some aligning of your purpose, some conflict resolution. You know, for those that are in the room for the first time, I suspect that this could have felt a little bit like a roller coaster. And if you have been around for a while, it could have felt reminiscent of, as Mr. Toomer pointed out, of the days of old. And it's my hope, and it's our department's commitment to do everything that we have to do to keep that from happening, to keep y'all from devolving to where it was before. We have enjoyed, at least since I've been here, and I think before that too, we've enjoyed a really, really good relationship with APAB. A really good relationship with APAB without any hostility, without any adversarial tones and all of that stuff. And I really, really, really would like for that to continue. Our commissioner would like for that to continue. We are committed to doing whatever we need to do to move APAB forward, to get you all stable, to get everybody working and producing recommendations to the council and to the city departments, recommendations that are heard and valued and considered and incorporated when appropriate, etc. I won't, stay on the soapbox, but that's our hope. Also, we've got 2 advisory groups that we're continuing. They're not new, but last year, or maybe the year before, we convened a group of from APAB of Participate, which is our outreach and awareness effort, and our community impact grant. We have a meeting, I think this coming Friday, if I remember correctly, for the CIG advisory group. and we are scheduling a meeting for the Participate Advisory Group. If you're interested in serving in either of those, if you have ideas for how we can improve our outreach, how we can empower NPUs to do outreach, how we can fund outreach and awareness, please let me know, because I'd love to send you an invite to that gathering. Or if you have ideas on how we can improve the Community Impact Grant Program, with which we have had many, many problems. I have not kept that a secret from y'all. Talk about it a lot. If we had time, I would have talked about it today. But if you have ideas for how we can strengthen that program, please let me know, and I'll make sure you get an invite to that discussion as well. Thank you.
I would like to second the motion to adjourn.
I'd like to again thank all of you for joining us today. I apologize for all of the confusion. Hopefully, like Ms. LaRue says, we can get this year off to a good working start. There's a lot of work that we have to do, a lot of issues that are slapping us in the face that we as APAB should be disseminating information about to the NPUs. So we have a lot of work we have to do. Of course, there are elections and things like the Public Service Commission. And most of you know that all of the public service agencies, Georgia Natural Gas, Atlanta Gas Light, Georgia Power, all are asking for additional rate increases. This year, we have an opportunity to vote and know beforehand who's going to be running. We can start working on that and let our people know who they should be voting for.
Point of order.
All right, I'm getting ready to close. Thank you so much. You want to go home? All right. If you would please definitely go to the reception. It is right on the side of the council chambers. Everybody who was sworn in, I have your copies of your sheets, so please get those before you leave today.
Are we voting on the motion?
Are we voting on the motion? You want to be voting on the motion? I'm tired. Lester, are we voting on the motion to dismiss? Yes. Everybody in favor of leaving now? Please raise your hand. Aye. Okay, thank you so much.
Oyendo.